Welcome to Justice Insight Cam, your source for authentic bodycam footage of police interactions. We do not just show the tape, we break down the law, the facts, and the crucial takeaways of every single encounter. Let us review the evidence.
You haven't seen your child in 2 years?
Because I didn't miss my visits. I was blocked.
Ms. Kingsley, did you block him on the app?
Yes, Your Honor.
You haven't seen your child in 2 years, the judge says, eyes moving from the file to the man standing at counsel table. And you want this court to believe that's someone else's fault? The courtroom is quiet enough to hear the air vent click on. The father doesn't flinch. He doesn't raise his voice. He just slides a thick binder across the polished wood. Tabs, dates, screenshots, mileage logs, like he's placing something heavy and undeniable on the record. Yes, Your Honor, he says, because I didn't miss my visits. I was blocked. On the other side of the room, the mother's jaw tightens, and for the first time in months of hearings, continuances, and whispered hallway negotiations, the judge does something different. She reaches for her glasses. Let's see it, she says, because some stories in family court survive on one fragile thing, whoever sounds more believable. But today the story is about to collide with timestamps. To protect privacy, names, locations, and some details are reconstructed. This is a fictionalized composite inspired by common patterns seen in custody disputes. His name is Mark Delaney, 38 years old, a logistics supervisor who lives by calendars and route times, the kind of person who doesn't forget a deadline because deadlines are how he pays rent, buys groceries, and stays afloat. 2 years ago, Mark wasn't standing in a courtroom. He was standing in the doorway of a small townhouse, holding a stuffed rabbit and trying to keep his voice steady, while his daughter, Lily, cried on the other side. Lily was 5 then. Now she's 7. And in those 2 years, Mark's life has been measured in miles. He drove to exchange points, and minutes he spent staring at his phone when nobody answered. His ex-wife is Tara Kingsley, 36, works in medical billing, sharp, organized, always ready. With a reason. Tara doesn't scream in public. Tara doesn't throw scenes. Tara does something more effective. She explains, she frames, she narrates. And for a long time, her narration became the official version. It didn't begin as war. It began as a divorce, which is often the same thing wearing nicer shoes. The original order was simple: alternate weekends, Wednesday dinners, holiday splits, and a required co-parenting app. No texts, no calls, everything in one place so the court could review it if needed. And the judge at the time called it structure. Mark called it a lifeline. He could handle rules. He could handle schedules. What he couldn't handle was the feeling that his relationship with his child depended on whether someone else decided to answer a message. The first few months after the order, it almost worked. Mark showed up early. He waited in the parking lot. He kept snacks in the passenger seat because Lily always got hungry in the car. He bought a booster seat for his own vehicle, even though his apartment was small and his budget smaller. On those first exchanges, Lily would run to him with her backpack bouncing, and Tara would stand a few feet away, expression tight, phone in her hand like it was a shield. Then something shifted, not all at once, in fractions. A late response, a cancellation, a new rule. Arthie and Mark didn't notice the pattern until he was already inside it. It started with illnesses, the kind you can't argue with without looking heartless. Lily has a fever. Stomach bug. Doctor says no travel. Mark would respond the way any reasonable parent would. I understand. Can I FaceTime her tonight? Sometimes Tara wouldn't answer. Sometimes she would. She's asleep. Next week. She's not feeling up to it. Next month. She's anxious. Don't push her. Mark tried to adjust. He offered to take Lily to the pediatrician himself. He offered to pick up medicine. He offered to do shorter visits. The answer was always some version of no. And then the cancellations weren't just about being sick. They were about being busy, a birthday party, a family gathering, a school event that suddenly mattered more than a court order. Mark kept showing up anyway, because the order didn't say alternate weekends unless it's inconvenient. It said alternate weekends. So on Friday evenings, Mark would drive to the agreed exchange point, a grocery store parking lot under harsh lights, cameras mounted on poles, an area chosen specifically because it was public. He would park, he would message through the app, "I'm here." And then he would wait, 5 minutes, 10, 20. Sometimes he'd see Tara's car turn into the lot, then turn out again like a thought she didn't want. Most times he'd see nothing. When he'd message again, still polite, still careful, Tara would respond later with the same line. "You didn't show." Mark would stare at his screen, alone under those lights, and feel his reality bend. Because he was there, but the record, her record, was that he wasn't. The first time Mark filed a motion to enforce, he did it without a lawyer. A stack of printed screenshots, his handwriting on the margins, dates circled in blue ink. He thought facts would be enough. He walked into family court thinking it was like regular court. Evidence goes in, truth comes out. Then he learned how family court can feel when you're the person without a polished narrative. The hearing lasted 11 minutes. Tara's attorney spoke first. "Mr. Delaney has been inconsistent," she said. "He cancels. He shows up late. Lily has been distressed. Ms. Kingsley has acted in the child's best interest." Mark tried to speak. "I'm not inconsistent," he said. "I'm being turned away." The judge listened, nodded, and said the sentence Mark would hear again and again in different forms. "Cooperate, communicate, don't involve the child." Then the judge ordered reunification counseling. Not because Mark did something wrong, but because the court's answer to a broken relationship is often to hand you a new appointment. Mark left that day with a new bill, a new obligation, and the same problem. He still couldn't see his daughter. Over the next year, Mark's life became a loop. He'd message for confirmation, no response. He'd drive anyway, no one would show. He'd file a report in the app. Tara would reply with something clean and sharp. "Stop harassing me." That word, harassing, did damage, because it flipped the roles. If Mark insisted on the court order, he was controlling. If Mark asked for his time, he was aggressive. If Mark showed up to the parking lot and waited, he was creating conflict. So he began to shrink himself. He kept his messages short. He avoided emotion. He wrote like someone who knew every sentence could be read aloud to a judge. "Confirm exchange location. Confirm time. I am en route. I have arrived." And still, silence. Then, the app started doing something strange. Messages would show as delivered, but Tara would claim she never saw them. Mark would request read receipts. They'd be disabled. He'd attach photos of his car parked under the lot's time-stamped security camera. Tara would reply, "That could be any parking lot." Mark realized he was arguing with someone who didn't need to win on facts. She just needed to keep the story foggy. The second time Mark filed to enforce, he hired a budget attorney named Drew Klein. Drew wasn't flashy, he didn't promise miracles, he promised work. And on the first day Mark sat across from him, Drew asked one question that changed everything. "Do you have proof you were there?" Mark blinked. "I have messages," he said. Drew shook his head. "Messages are a start," he said. "But in court, start isn't enough. We need independent confirmation, something that doesn't depend on what either of you says." That's when Mark's case stopped being a plea and started becoming an investigation, because Mark had been doing what desperate people do, collecting. He just didn't know he was collecting the right way. Drew told him to stop thinking like a hurt father. and start thinking like a record. They began with the obvious: GPS history. Mark's phone had it. Every drive, every stop, every wait. Dates lined up with the court order. Friday evenings at the exchange point, Sundays at the exchange point, Wednesdays at the exchange point. Over and over. Then they pulled bank statements, gas purchases near the lot, grocery receipts from the store beside it. Not proof on its own, but it supported the timeline. Next, Drew asked Mark something that felt small, but mattered. "Did you ever call the police?" Mark hesitated. "Once," he admitted. "A wellness check. I didn't want to, but she wouldn't respond for 3 days. Lily was supposed to be with me. I had no idea where she was." Drew's eyebrows rose. "Get that report," he said, and when it arrived, it contained a line that made Drew sit back in his chair. Mother declined to facilitate exchange, stated father did not confirm. Declined. Not. Couldn't. Declined. Drew started making requests, subpoenas, records, things Mark didn't even know he could ask for. And Tara, sensing the ground shift, tightened her grip. Because that's what gatekeeping looks like when it feels threatened. It escalates. The cancellations became accusations. Lily doesn't want to go. She's scared. She cries when she hears your name. Mark read those messages late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of father he looked like in his child's mind now. Was she imagining him as the man who disappeared? As the man who didn't come? Mark started leaving voice notes in the app, short, gentle ones. "Hey kiddo, I'm thinking of you. I'm here when you're ready." They remained unread, and then Tara filed her own motion to modify custody to reduce Mark's time. Her reason? Abandonment. That word hit Mark like a punch. Abandonment. As if he had chosen this. As if his absence wasn't engineered. As if he hadn't been standing under those parking lot lights for 2 years. When Drew saw the motion, he didn't panic. He smiled once, thin, controlled. "Okay," he said. "Now we bring the receipts." The next hearing was set for a Monday morning. Family court mornings have a particular sound. Whispered negotiations, shoes squeaking on waxed tile, a copier humming in the distance, and the low, constant murmur of people who all think their story should be the one the judge hears first. Mark sat on a bench outside Department 4, binder on his lap, hands clasped tight enough to ache. Tara arrived with her attorney, calm, composed, hair perfect. A folder tucked under her arm like she'd done this 100 times. She didn't look at Mark. When the bailiff called the case, they walked in. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and hand sanitizer. Judge Evelyn Park took the bench, late 50s, steady eyes, no patience for theatrics. She had seen every kind of custody war and learned the same lesson over and over. The loudest person is not always the truthful one. Tara's attorney opened. "Your Honor, this father has not exercised parenting time for nearly 2 years. The child is stable with the mother. We're asking the court to formalize reality." Mark's stomach turned, because the sentence sounded so simple. Formalize reality. Except the reality being described wasn't his. Judge Park looked at Mark. "Mr. Delaney," she said, "why haven't you seen your daughter?" Mark swallowed. "Because I've been blocked," he said. A few people in the gallery shifted. Judge Park's expression didn't change. "Explain," she said. Drew stood. "Your Honor," he said, "we're going to show that Mr. Delaney attempted to exercise parenting time consistently and that Miss Kingsley interfered repeatedly. We're also going to show that she documented his no-shows in a way that contradicts independent records." Tara's attorney scoffed softly. Independent records? She echoed. Drew nodded. Yes, he said. GPS history, receipts, a police wellness check report, and most importantly, the co-parenting app audit log. That last phrase landed differently. Audit log. Because everyone in family court knows screenshots can be selective. But an audit log is a spine, a timeline, a thing you can't easily bend. Judge Park leaned forward. Do we have that? She asked. Drew held up a sealed envelope. Produced by the app vendor pursuant to subpoena, he said. Tara's attorney's posture changed, not dramatic, just smaller. Judge Park opened the envelope and flipped through the pages. Her eyes moved left to right, faster than you'd expect. Then she stopped and looked up. Ms. Kingsley, she said, did you block Mr. Delaney on the co-parenting app? Tara blinked. No, she said quickly. Of course not. Judge Park tapped a page. This shows his messages were marked restricted. It shows he requested confirmation. It shows your account initiated a mute and then a full visibility limitation for his communications. Tara's attorney jumped in. Your Honor, she didn't block him. The app has settings for... Judge Park raised a hand. Counsel, she said, I know what a block is. Then she looked back at Tara. Answer the question. Tara's throat moved as she swallowed. I didn't block him, she insisted. I limited it, because he was sending too many messages. Mark's eyes flicked to the log. Too many messages. In 2 years, his too many messages were requests for confirmation and updates. Judge Park's voice stayed even. How many? She asked. Drew stepped forward. Your Honor, he said, we ran a count. Over 24 months, Mr. Delaney sent an average of 4 messages per week. Almost all are logistical. I'm here. Confirm location. Please respond. Judge Park's gaze didn't leave Tara. And you told the court he didn't show, she said. Tara tried to hold her composure. He didn't, she said. He would say he was there, but... Drew didn't argue. He pulled out another tab. Exhibit 12, he said. It was a printout of Mark's location history, mapped like a heartbeat. Judge Park studied it. Friday, parking lot, wait. Sunday, parking lot, wait. Wednesday, parking lot, wait. Over and over. You were there, Judge Park said, not as a question. Mark's voice came out quiet. Yes, he said. Tara's attorney shifted tactics. Your Honor, location history can be manipulated. Drew nodded once. That's why we corroborated it, he said. He slid another document forward. Receipts from the store adjacent to the exchange point, time-stamped within minutes of the scheduled exchange, gas purchases, and a police report from the welfare check. Judge Park's eyebrows rose slightly. A welfare check? She asked. Mark's throat tightened. She wouldn't respond, he said. Lily was supposed to be with me. I didn't know where she was. I didn't want to make it bigger. I just wanted to know my child was okay. Judge Park turned to Tara. Why didn't you respond? She asked. Tara's voice sharpened. Because he was harassing me, she said, and that word came out again like a weapon. Judge Park didn't react. She flipped to the police report. Then she flipped again. Then she looked up. The officer wrote that you declined to facilitate exchange, she said. Tara's attorney tried to interrupt. Judge Park held up a hand. No, she said. I'm going to ask Ms. Kingsley directly. Judge Park's tone was still controlled, but something had shifted. Not anger, clarity. Ms. Kingsley, she said, did you prevent Mr. Delaney from exercising his court-ordered parenting time? Tara's eyes darted, searching for an exit. I did what was best for Lily, she said. Answer, Judge Park repeated. Tara's shoulders lifted and fell, a tiny tremor. I didn't want her going, she admitted. And there it was, not denial, not confusion, a confession wrapped in justification. Drew didn't celebrate, he didn't smirk, he just opened the binder to the next tab. "Your Honor," he said, "there's one more piece." Judge Park nodded. Drew placed a single sheet on the lectern. It was a screenshot, not of the app, of Tara's social media. A public post from months earlier, a photo of Lily at a pumpkin patch, and a caption that read, "Some people don't deserve to be parents. She's better without him." Mark's stomach twisted. He hadn't seen that post until Drew found it, because he had been too busy waiting in parking lots. Judge Park stared at it for a long moment, then she set it down. "Ms. Kingsley," she said, "this is not co-parenting, this is interference." Tara's attorney stood. "Your Honor, social media is irrelevant." Judge Park cut him off. "It's relevant to intent," she said, "and intent matters in contempt." The word contempt made the room feel colder, because contempt is not a suggestion. Contempt is a line. It's the court saying, you didn't just behave badly, you violated an order, and you did it knowingly. Judge Park turned to Mark. "Mr. Delaney," she said, "have you been keeping up with child support?" Mark's face tightened. "Yes," he said, "every month, wage withheld." Judge Park nodded slowly. "So the court's orders were valid when they required money," she said, eyes on Tara, "but not valid when they required parenting time." Tara's lips parted, but no sound came. Judge Park leaned back. "This court is making findings today," she said, and then she began to read them into the record, each sentence landing like a stamp. 1. Ms. Kingsley interfered with parenting time by refusing to present the child at the agreed exchange location. 2. Ms. Kingsley restricted communication through the court-ordered co-parenting app, impeding Mr. Delaney's ability to confirm exchanges. 3. Ms. Kingsley misrepresented no-shows to the court and to third parties. 4. The interference occurred repeatedly over a significant period of time. Tara's attorney tried to breathe life into a defense. "Your Honor, she believed she was acting." Judge Park raised a hand. "Belief is not a defense to contempt," she said, "not when the order is clear." Mark felt his heart thudding in his ears, because he had spent 2 years being treated like the unreliable one. 2 years of being told, gently and sometimes not gently, that maybe the problem was him. And now, finally, the court was naming what he had been living. Judge Park looked directly at Tara. "Ms. Kingsley," she said, "this court finds you in contempt." A small sound escaped Tara, half gasp, half disbelief. Contempt, not a warning, not a lecture, a finding. Judge Park continued. "Here is what will happen next," she said. 1. There will be make-up parenting time. 2 years of interference does not disappear. The child has lost time with her father. The court will address that. Mark's hands trembled slightly on the edge of the table. Judge Park's voice stayed steady. 2. Ms. Kingsley will pay attorney's fees related to this enforcement action. 3. Exchanges will move to a supervised exchange center temporarily, not because Mr. Delaney requires supervision, but because this case requires accountability. 4. The parties will remain on the co-parenting app, and no account restrictions may be applied without court approval. 5. This court is ordering co-parenting counseling, focused on compliance, not feelings. Then she paused. And 6, she added, any further interference will result in escalating sanctions, including potential jail time. The room went very still. Jail time. Mark didn't want Tara in jail. He wanted his daughter. But the judge had to draw the line in ink, because for 2 years, Tara had lived as if the line was optional. After the hearing, the hallway outside Department 4 felt like a different building. The same fluorescent lights, the same benches, the same tired families waiting for their names. But Mark's chest felt lighter, not relieved, not healed, just acknowledged. Tara walked out stiffly, whispering to her attorney. When she passed Mark, she finally looked at him. Her eyes weren't apologetic. They were furious, as if he had done something to her. Mark didn't speak, because he understood something now. This wasn't about misunderstanding. It was about control. And control, when it's threatened, doesn't go quietly. The supervised exchange center started the next weekend. It was a beige building with a lobby that smelled faintly like disinfectant and stale coffee. A sign on the wall read, "Keep interactions brief and respectful." Mark arrived 20 minutes early. He sat in his car with Lily's favorite crackers on the seat beside him, breathing through the nerves. What do you say to a child you haven't held in 2 years? How do you bridge that gap without making her responsible for it? Inside, staff checked his ID, then guided him to a small playroom with plastic toys and a worn carpet. He waited, and this time, someone came. Lily walked in holding Tara's hand. She was taller, her hair longer, her face older in a way that made Mark's throat burn. She hesitated in the doorway like she wasn't sure what her body was allowed to do. Mark didn't rush her. He knelt. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. Lily blinked up at him. "Mom said you didn't come," she whispered. The sentence hit him harder than any judge's skepticism, because it revealed the real damage of interference. It doesn't just steal time, it rewrites memory. Mark kept his voice gentle. "I came," he said. "A lot. I'm really sorry you didn't know that, but I'm here now." Lily's eyes filled. Then slowly, she stepped forward and pressed into his arms. Mark wrapped her up like he was afraid she might vanish. He didn't cry. Not yet. He just held her. And in the quiet hum of that beige room, he promised himself something. He wouldn't poison her with the details. He wouldn't make her choose sides. He would do what the court couldn't order. Rebuild trust with patience. Over the next months, the makeup time began like a careful stitch. Extra weekends, additional midweek visits, holiday blocks expanded, not as punishment, as repair. And Tara, cornered by the court's clear order, shifted tactics. She stopped saying "for Mark didn't come." She started saying Yaris Lily didn't want to. But now the exchange center kept logs, sign-in sheets, staff notes, objective records. Friction didn't disappear, but it could no longer hide. In the next review hearing, Judge Park asked a simple question. Is the order being followed? The exchange center's logs answered before anyone spoke. Yes. And Lily, quietly, began to relax. She stopped watching the adults' faces for cues. She started being a child again. A year after the contempt finding, Mark sat in his car outside Lily's school, waiting for pickup. The sun was low, warm through the windshield. Their kids poured out the doors in bursts of noise. Lily ran to him with a drawing in her hand. "Look," she said, climbing into the seat. "I made you and me." The picture was simple, stick figures, big smiles. But the detail that made Mark swallow hard was this. The house in the drawing had 2 doors. One labeled Mom, one labeled Dad. Not a battleground, a map. Mark held the paper carefully, like it might tear, and he thought back to that first hearing, the one that lasted 11 minutes, when a judge told him to cooperate and communicate. As if cooperation alone could defeat obstruction. As if the truth always surfaces on its own. It doesn't. In family court, the truth often arrives in folders, in logs, in timestamps, in the unglamorous persistence of someone who refuses to be rewritten. If you've ever had someone try to narrate your life for you, twist facts, erase effort, turn your love into a flaw, you know what Mark learned the hard way. You can't out-argue a story, but you can outlast it. With records, with patience, with the kind of calm that doesn't collapse into silence. And somewhere, Under fluorescent lights, in a courtroom that smelled like old paper, a judge finally said the word Mark had needed for 2 years. Contempt, not because it felt good, but because it meant the court saw what had been happening. And once the court sees it, the story changes. Not instantly, not perfectly, but enough. Enough for a little girl to stop wondering why her dad didn't come. Enough for a father to stop proving he belongs. And enough for one simple truth to take root where a lie had been growing for far too long. He was never absent. He was blocked.
We thank you for watching. If this episode provided clarity on the matter, kindly like, share, and subscribe to the Justice Insight Cam channel. Stay educated, stay secure, and we look forward to our next review.